So there are issues that are coming up, and I will put a video on that soon too. So I recommend that we have this. So I think Sharif is here right now. Let me take him. Sharif, are you there? Hello?
Yes, this is Sharif.
Hey, Sharif, how are you, my friend? Okay, good, we got you back. So, Sharif, I thank you so much for taking some time to be with us. Just to let people know, Sharif is from our law group, and he handles our Washington D.C. office, but mostly he handles all the cases on EB1 and national interest waiver, and we have kind of partnered on those to make this happen for you. So, Sharif, I know we have a lot to talk about because it seems like we are having to reinvent ourselves lately. So tell us a little bit what's going on.
Sure. I think that, folks out there understand that the situation remains difficult for folks who are in the, who are on H-1B, maybe in EB2Q, and you need to basically open up different options and have different ability to find a pathway toward a green card. I think anybody that is in the situation understands that, look, I think being here, being in the country solely on a temporary worker visa and reliant upon an employer is not the ideal or optimal situation you want to be in. Therefore, what we've been very successful in doing over the past few years is moving these folks, taking advantage of either their previous approval date or position that they've been in, and finding a pathway to an EB1 green card. So that's basically what we do. That's what our focus is, and at the same time looking at backing up your existing EB2 qualification with the national interest waiver, so that you're able to, move jobs if necessary or do what needs to be done in regard to having that flexibility of even, say, having to leave the country for a little bit before coming back while always maintaining that, I-140 flexibility. So, those are the things we're focused on here in our D.C. office, and making sure that people are, successful in that regard. There is a lot of, I would say, discussion about, approval rates and is this really possible and things like that. So that is obviously something that, people are interested in, and how we kind of, position them. So, we can kind of have that discussion. I do want to point you to some statistics, though, because, that's kind of like how I like to operate. What we are capable of and doing, here internally. However, I think it's always good to look at the global statistics so that we understand what we are, dealing with. So there was actually a report in the Wall Street Journal where, they published, some of the statistics that are going on with respect to EB1A and extraordinary ability. And what it found is that there was about a 20% drop-off in approvals from 2017 to 2019. And this has caused some people maybe to think that their own EB1A is not possible. However, this, Shah, and I know this, that in our own internal mechanisms and tracking, we actually see that, we've increased our approval rates astonishingly. So, although there always are, one or two that maybe we have to fight a little bit harder or even go through an appeal or do whatever, is necessary to kind of overcome an RFE, for the most part, the vast majority are getting approved. So the statistics showed that in 2017 and before, there was around an 80% approval rate for all EB1A cases. That has now come down to about 56%. So that 56% number, I believe, is related to two factors. The one, I think the biggest factor is an overall increase in the number of applications. And number two factor is that most practitioners or HR departments or individuals self-petitioning are not adapting their approach to meet the requirements of the existing adjudication method. So where if you look, kind of online or you search for what it's going to take to be approved for an EB1A petition, most people will find, that you need to meet 3 of 10 criteria, yada, yada, yada. However, if you really analyze the data and look at the kind of, information that we've been seeing over the past 3 years, you find that what you really need to do is use what's called the plain language meaning of the statute approach. And that is where the disconnect is. So, if about
Sarif, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you here because we always talk about this plain language approach, and a lot of people, they go to another lawyer or someone else. They say, "Hey, you don't qualify because you don't have this and you don't have that," and they stay like that. And unfortunately, the same cases when they come to us, or fortunately, we get it approved, but then by that time the date is retrogressed. So people have to understand that what Sharif is talking about here, and we have Attorney Sharif with us right now, and for those who don't know him, he handles all the EB1 cases in our office, and he has we have taken the real approach which should have been taken, but most lawyers are still sticking to that, and then people think, okay, if we tell them okay, it's good, and then they try it on their own too, and they're failing, and they're coming back and say, oh, you told me, but then the problem is that when you look at their petition, they went by this exact checklist that you said, and of course they will get denied when it comes to that. And this is why I always say EB1, and I'm proud to say we have this thing, it's an artistic approach, and if the lawyer doesn't know how to really combine those facts with the law, it's not going to be approved. And sometimes I get upset because we try to do that and it doesn't, we keep trying until we get it right, and it takes time, but at the end of the day, this is for your own good because we need it to get approved. I just wanted to enter that there, Sharif, because a lot of people get confused on that. Go ahead, tell us a little bit more about this approach.
Yeah, and I think the other point I would add to that is that when we're looking at the plain language of the meaning statute approach, people always ask me, like, what is that? What does that actually mean? And my response is the best way to understand what plain language of the statute approach means is understanding the difference between what existed previously and what we're doing now. Wherein previously we would use what's called totality of the circumstances. So what is the totality of the circumstances? That is that the people who are adjudicating your petition are allowed to make certain inferences. They can make assumptions, right? Nowadays, they cannot do that. So I'll give you just a very simple way to think about this. You want to basically put yourself in a position where you think about the adjudicating officer has just landed for Mars. They've literally just landed for Mars. They've never been in the country. They don't know anything. And now they are going to look at your case. They don't know what NASA is. They don't know what Microsoft is. They don't know what Oracle is. They don't know what anything is. So what we are trying to do is explain to the adjudicating officer where you stand in the field and how that can, manifest into an approval. So really, I think a lot of times the RFEs or the notices of intent to deny or the denied cases come from a lack of information being presented to the adjudicators. And then the other thing that you really have to do now is you have to go into the details of the details of the details. You cannot just, provide a straightforward explanation. My favorite, thing that, people always say, well, you said we need evidence of reviewing or judging the work of others. So I gave you evidence of it. I gave you invitation letter stating that I was invited to review a journal article. Isn't that enough? Well, I think that's called a loser approach, because if you're going to be happy or satisfied with one document or one email or one piece of evidence, then I think that you are not going to be successful. You need to have the approach that failure is not an option, that this is the most important thing in the world. What astonishes me is how talented and how amazing our client base is, Attorney Shaw. That is a great blessing. However, what frustrates me sometimes is that they use all of their talent, all of their brain power, all of their ability, all of their strength to support their employer. They're not utilizing that energy and power and brain to help themselves.
Okay,
so let me
say something here. Yeah, sorry I'm interrupting, but this is important what you just said, Sharif, because people don't realize that, and especially people who are very, very intelligent, they tend to think only so much about their work, they forget about themselves. And later on, when their visas are expired or they're not getting something and they're waiting on an EB2 forever, especially from India or China, to get a green card, they really get frustrated. While the same approach, if they had put some time and get a good lawyer who understands what's happening, contacted us or any good lawyer out there, we could have gotten them their green card, and that puts them in some kind of safety zone where they can do a better job. So this is important what you just mentioned. They tend to look so much. We have one caller for EB1, Sharif. So let's take the caller and maybe you can ask. Go ahead, Vedika. Hello.
Hello, this is Mr. Mandel. I would like to share my heartfelt gratitude and sincere thanks to Mr. Sharif and Mr. Shah for getting my I-140 approved. And thanks for all your help and continuous support. It was really a great experience.
Thank you so much.
And I was just hearing, and everything that you mentioned, Mr. Shah, Mr. Sharif, is true. Very true, and I wish that if everyone pays great attention to their individual contributions while actually focusing on their work and preserve these evidences, and it will just work out if they follow Mr. Sharif's advice. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind of you.
Thank you.
Right timing.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, that's funny. I really remember that case, and I think that one thing that kind of really, I admire about the successful people is they put their real energy and effort into making sure that their case gets approved. There's really no substitute for hard work. So one thing that I always factor when people ask me, hey, do you think my case will be approved, is how I feel about their will. And do they have the real, guts and will to go out and get the evidence needed to get approved? Because sometimes you can be the most, amazing rocket scientist at NASA, but if you're so timid and afraid that you don't want to ask somebody for support evidence, or you don't want to request from your employer the ability to show your work product, then, we're not going to be able to present the evidence needed to get your case approved. So, one of the requirements that the government sets out is what's called the extensive documentation requirement. So, I always operate from the assumption that the adjudicating officer wishes to deny the petition. It's not necessarily the case that they do, but my feeling is if we operate with that understanding, then we will, put forward the strongest possible arguments and strongest possible evidence. And if the person is receptive or is more inclined to approve, then we've done an even better job than needed. So it's not about, do I have enough evidence to be approved? It's about, can we produce, by the time that your petition is going to be sent, enough evidence for you to be approved. And, this gentleman who I care deeply about very much was one of those people.
Yeah, is he still on the line? I don't know. I just wanted to thank him again but that was really nice of him just to call randomly like that. And last week we got another random call like that, and I have to congratulate you also, Sharif, for doing an excellent job. The only thing we know that now the problem that we're facing is time, because those cases all kind of actually taking twice the time to do them than we used to be able, maybe sometimes 3 times. But the reason for that, Sharif, is important. Like you say, you need to help us to help you. And also, if you're going to count on an EB2, you might be here forever, and you might have a child who's born here who might even petition for you down the road. But it is frustrating. I hear the stories of many people, and some people just say, oh, I don't qualify for EB2, and they just brush it off. And when we look at their resumes, I think we have, like, I don't know, Sharif, how many cases we got where people believe they don't have a case and we won. So I don't know. I think it's pretty much all of them. So it's not.
I would say
tell us, because this is the things that people, like, for example, people come to our office for an H4 EAD, and we end up doing an EB1 for them, and they win their case. People don't know that. You don't have to be an H1. You don't have to be an L1. You can even sit in overseas. If you're in India, I know people listening to us overseas, we can still do that for them, right?
Absolutely. And, obviously we're not, we're going to give people the truth, the proper guidance. So if it seems like it's completely far-fetched or impossible, we'll tell you straight up. But ultimately, I don't see much of those cases. I usually see ones that are, clearly within a class of individuals that may qualify, that are, operating at a very elite and high level within the field. And then you have borderline cases, and we tell you straight up, look, this is your situation. It's, if you were to give me everything you have today and ask me to write a legal brief to get you approved for an EB1A, I'll tell you, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. But if I can work with you over a period of time, maybe a year, maybe a half year, then get you to the point where you will be approved. Now we're talking. Now we, have hope to really get your case going. So it is really a beautiful thing, to hear from, these folks and know that you kind of made a change in their life and whatnot. So that's why I really am in this business, and what gives me the kind of, more energy to keep going and keep, producing results for people. So, unfortunately it can't be every single time, because some people maybe didn't produce the exact, evidence that was needed. And it does take a little bit longer. We have to go to the drawing board, but I think that for the most part, I would say that, at least, 9 out of 10 times we're able to make sure that we're successful and change a person's life. So, that's
it's
really
true. I have to admit it. Since you joined now, we've been doing that now for what? Almost 4 years now, right? And we have taken a different approach, and which I was not taking myself until we started coming up with those new ideas. And then now we are seeing things that most people don't believe is happening. And we had a live testimony right now. We didn't want the client to mention their name because, and then I just want to let people know we never asked them to call, and that was a random call, and I really appreciate that.
We never ask people to call. We never ask people to give review or something like that. Just
they usually
do the work,
on their own,
and people are willing to do it. So that's great.
Exactly, and we really appreciate that. And Sharif, tell us a little bit about the kind of, because people want to know now. Okay, what are the most common situations where, let's say, for example, someone doesn't have any publications or citations, can they still get an approved EB1? And just before I say that, you were mentioning about the 56% that it went down. I think many of those cases, unfortunately, are EB1C. There is a huge influx of EB1C because a lot of people, because they were waiting on EB2, they went back and they stayed 1 year and tried to file EB1C, and if it is not properly filed, of course you will get a denial. So that's probably what's bringing down. But most of the time, EB1A, we're getting good results, because for us, from our office, I think our approval rate is a lot higher than, I think it's above 85 to 90%, if I'm not mistaken. So
exactly, and that shows that that the job that we're doing, because the 56% is obviously the national figure across all applicants. It's not anything that is internal. So that's where that 56% comes from.
Exactly. Now, Sharif, let us talk a little bit about something else, because not something else, but something related, national interest waiver. I wanted to really make people understand how interesting it is and how good it is to have it, although it's an EB2. For one, national interest waiver doesn't require an employer, which makes you basically free from an employer and always have to refile whenever you're moving your job. And number two, national interest waiver doesn't require labor certification. And some people, if you are born, for example, or your wife is born in another country apart from India or China, you might end up getting a green card pretty fast. And in fact, I have done cases where people were from Taiwan, from Romania, if I'm not mistaken, where we do national interest waiver, and we bring them directly on the green card. So tell us a little bit about the cases of national waiver you have worked recently, and what can people look for if it is possible, because they might qualify and they don't know about it.
Exactly. Well, one thing I would say really quick about just strategy, because I think we've talked a little bit before about what the legal requirements are, so I can go over that again, but I just want to talk a little bit more strategically, if that's okay, because I think
Sure, go ahead, take it.
Kind of think about what their options are. So when we look strategically at an individual case, what we're looking at is how do we put people in a situation to be successful, so that they're successful in their life and so that they have backup for worst case scenario situation. So one thing that I've been doing is offering kind of a new legal service where we do a concurrent filing of both national interest waiver and EB1A. So obviously this is a lot of extra work from the legal standpoint, but it's necessary to protect our client's interest. A lot of the evidence that is produced in an EB1A preparation case will also be very, very helpful to a national interest waiver case. This is true for individuals who even do not have a master's degree. For example, if you do not possess a master's degree, you still can qualify for a national interest waiver using what's called the E21 extraordinary ability category. So that's kind of the legal classification within national interest waiver for individuals that do not have a master's degree. Normally, in order to qualify for a national interest waiver, you must demonstrate that you have a master's degree or higher. However, there's a way around that where you demonstrate that you meet specific criteria related to the extraordinary ability. And it's obviously a much easier extraordinary analysis than exists among the EB1A category, but there is significant correlation between them. And then I'll tell you another similarity between EB1A and national interest waiver. And that is, when we take the EB1A plain language meaning of the statute approach, the first requirement for an EB1A petition is to demonstrate that you will prospectively benefit the United States, that you're going to bring about future benefit to the United States. The way that the government wants you to present prospective benefit evidence is to demonstrate that you're working in an area that is naturally or intrinsically beneficial to U.S. interests. Well, guess what? That's the same requirement that exists on a national interest waiver. If you understand the Danasar case, if people want to look it up, it's DHANASAR. Danasar, what it lays out is that the first requirement is for national interest waiver after you've demonstrated either E21 extraordinary ability or that you have a master's degree, is to demonstrate that you work in an area that is intrinsically beneficial to the United States. Guess what? That's the same thing that is being required for prospective benefit analysis. So there's a lot of areas where, there's overlap between national interest waiver and EB1A. So if I'm a highly accomplished, positioned, let's say, product creator, at a major, tech company, right? And I'm making, $200,000 a year, $180,000 a year, or $250,000 or whatever it is. And I have an H-1B, beautiful house, probably in Fremont or San Ramon or something. I'm going to live on a temporary worker visa, relying on my employer's I-140 for my renewal, that to me is insane. I'm sorry. I respect people, but that is crazy. What we need to do is put you in a position where you're reliant upon yourself. That best way to rely on yourself is to do the EB1A and get it approved.
Yes.
The backup to that is to do a national interest waiver. My proposal for my clients in this situation is do both at the same time. We do the EB1A at the same time we're building up the national interest waiver case.
Exactly.
That way you have absolute and total protection and security. We want to build a bubble around our clients to protect their interests.
Yeah.
Attorney Shaw,
let me add a footnote here, Sharif. What you just said is exactly right, and a lot of people will wonder why do that. The main reason is that when you have an I-140, the regular I-140, even EB2, EB3 with your employer, every time you move employer, you have to start over with a new labor certification, etc. But the national interest waiver, there's nothing to be done because it belongs to you. And when it belongs to you, it belongs to you. You keep it, you take it. When the dates become current, we just attach your adjustment of status. And that's major, and that's what a lot of people say, oh, I already have an EB2, why would I go for that? The reason is exactly that, because every time you move, you don't have to keep begging. Plus, in some situations, some companies, they will refuse to do your green card. And having the national interest waiver with an I-140, you can use that and keep extending your H-1B. So it's important people realize this. I know sometimes people, okay, it costs money and all the stuff, but at the end of the day, it's an investment that is for your life, and we have this people. Last week we had some person calling Silas, and he said, in 10 months I got it, and I never thought I would even get something like that. So these are stuff that people should really consider, and call us if you need help on those. 510-7425-887. 510-7425-887. We will do an assessment for you, and Sharif and me will speak to you, and we'll make things happen, hopefully. If there's no case, we'll tell you there's no case. If there's a case, a potential, we'll tell you the chances, etc., right?
Exactly.
So, Sharif, tell me now, I think we have another, 8 minutes to go, something like that, right, Vedika? So tell us a little bit about few cases where you saw some really challenging situations and we were able to overcome that. People want to really hear this kind of stories, not basically, because now how many we did? Well, I think more than 100 of cases. I think maybe 200. I don't know. We have not counted really, but and more we do it,
Definitely.
More the experience, right? Tell us a little bit about a few examples in those few 5 minutes we have.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think we're definitely in the hundreds and hundreds. So that's a great blessing, and things are continuing to move forward. People are always getting nervous, like, oh, has it changed? Are you seeing anything different? And I'm like, no, it's actually been very consistent. It's very stable. So there's no reason to get, huge anxiety, particularly in the last, run up. The most important thing is to, allow the attorneys to do their work, to allow us to make sure that, we like to do our own, I would call it internal RFE check before submitting cases. So this sometimes is, I think, tests the patience of a lot of people, but, it's for your own good, because ultimately you don't want to spend 6, 8, 9 months, working your butt off to, produce evidence, or even if it's 4 or 5 months or less, and then, you overlook something or we overlook something, and I won't allow that, right? That's never happened, and I'll never let it happen. So
exactly. I'm very proud of that.
If I hurt somebody's feelings or they're a little bit upset with me for a little bit, it's okay, because when they get the approval notice, they're going to be so in love with me that it doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, I know. This happens a lot, and I know people sometimes they say, Shah, he's not doing that. I say, that's why I gave him that free hand, because I know his approach is different. Unless we have to brainstorm, then we decide on those. And for that, I really want to congratulate you. Your work is excellent, and it's been always great for us to have this. And before I close, I just wanted to mention people also. We help a lot of people with debt settlement. Right now it's becoming big. If you need any help on your credit cards, even houses who are second mortgages and you don't have equity on the houses, we might be able to get rid of those debts for you. Give us a call, 510-742-5887, and the website is yourdebtsettlementattorney.com, and that's something side that we offer. But now since I have Sharif, Sharif, tell me a little bit about O1 visa. We got a couple of approvals lately, so tell us quickly. We have another 2 minutes to go, I think.
Yeah, I think O1 visa, especially for our friends who are listening to us, overseas, or those on an OPT, you really have a great opportunity here. You definitely need an employer sponsor, so the company is going to have to pick you up. Or those who are, maybe managing consulting businesses that are out there, it's a great way to kind of not have to be at risk of the H-1B lottery. And you have a much less stringent requirement or review process with the O1 than the EB1. They do have the same criteria with respect to the regulatory side. However, it's solely focused on those regulations. So, for example, you demonstrate that you command a high salary, that you work in a critical role or have worked in a critical role for an organization of distinguished reputation, that you have original contributions of major significance to the field of endeavor, that you review or judge the work of others within a similar allied field, that you are a member of a professional organization that requires outstanding achievement of its members as judged by national and international experts in the field, or you have lesser nationally recognized awards. Just meeting a minimum of 3 of 10 criteria will allow you to qualify for the O1. You, again, are judged much less stringently than an EB1A, so it is relatively easier to have that O1 position. But the main thing you need there is the employer sponsor, the person the organization that will sponsor your petition. So that's the main thing. So if you have an employer that's flexible, that's willing to do that, and you're on an OPT, you're on an maybe H4, and you don't want to, remain in that situation, then this is certainly a wonderful way to move off of that and get you to a situation where, you'll be more secure. Or those of, our friends who are in India, for example, you're coming out of a prestigious institution, or you're working for maybe a U.S. company in India, or one of the major Indian tech companies. This is certainly a pathway for you to
a lot of people,
work
a lot
and
of
live in the
people
US.
actually know that. Sharif, I'm cutting you because we have 30 seconds to finish. I wanted to thank you so much for being on the air. Hopefully, I'll have you another in a couple of weeks, and to say congratulations again for all those cases. And anything we told you today is our opinion. You should not act or refrain to act solely on the information provided. You should contact an attorney if you have any questions. So one last word, Sharif, and then we will be closing.
Sure. Just again, thank you for everyone for giving me the opportunity to help you and to help us get through this. We're always, watching and advocating for the country quota and EB2 situation to get better. But in the meantime, you need to take your destiny in your own hand, and don't sit around and wait. I got somebody, they emailed me yesterday saying, it's been a year and a half. I thought the country quota would get resolved. I thought the government would act. But I should have just